Mengumumkan ketibaan yang amat berbahagia Tun Datuk Seri Utama AHMAD FUZI ABDUL RAZAK diiringi tetamu kehormat hadirin di pohon berdiri. Hadirin dipersilakan untuk terus berdiri dan bersedia bagi nyanyian lagu Negaraku dan Biru Warna.
Insan Tuhan membara langit biru mencari ilmu berteman kebudimanan bina nusa bina dunia sejahtera. Uni Utama ibu yang tercinta, kami doa lanjut usia bahagia. Kami janji hormati pesanmu, ilmu budi dan bakti. Kami anak alam insan Tuhan membara langit biru mencari ilmu berteman kebudimanan bina nusa bina dunia sejahtera. Uni Utama ibu yang tercinta, kami doa lanjut usia bahagia. Kami janji hormati pesanmu, ilmu budi dan bakti. Ilmu budi dan bakti.
Hadirin dipersilakan duduk. Bagi membuka tirai majlis pada pagi ini, sama-sama kita saksikan tayangan video korporat Universiti Utara Malaysia. Selamat menonton.
Eminent, credible, sustainable. A global revolution in a truly competitive millennium. Dedication and commitment are the essence in facing challenges and fulfill hopes. Intellectuals play the most significant role in the creation of frameworks for future sustainable development. This is the pledge of Universiti Utara, Malaysia. Management is the embodiment of Universiti Utara Malaysia UUM. Management that is based on thought and intellectual, where art, science and craft meet. At UUM, the holistic educational ecosystems is not merely to produce alumni, but to lay the foundation for future leaders. The world sees UUM as an institution of higher learning, equipped with a state-of-the-art facilities, smart campus and folded by nature. UUM champions the voice of its students. It is the voice of future intellects.
Universiti Utara Malaysia is an excellent university that shapes leaders in management.
It not only equipped me with an accountancy qualification, but also ignited in me a strong spirit of entrepreneurship.
UM can offer very good smart classes. They can offer a very good infrastructure. At the end of the day, this is one of the best universities ever. Now, year 2026 in Malaysia.
Research and innovation by its academic fraternity are undertaken with seriousness, not merely to fulfill the academic requirements, but to be at the forefront in shaping the industry. More than 100 million ringgit worth of research grants invested and more than 7,000 academic publications in the field of management and business produced in the last 5 years. Facilities and amenities provided feature the latest in smart technology, complementing the tranquility of the lush green campus surroundings. We believe in developing students holistically that can serve the society and country as its future leaders with the highest integrity and professionalism. Universiti Utara Malaysia, over the past 3 decades, has earned its own place by providing the highest quality of education and is marching forward towards achieving greater success and greatness. With the various awards and accreditations received, the future is certain and bodes well for the university. The royal patronage with the Kedah Royal House indeed provides vital publicity for the important work done at the university and allows the enormous achievements and contributions to society be recognized.
Every step at UUM is a journey toward excellence. UUMdagi har bir qadam sizni muvaffaqiyatga chorlaydi.
Start your future at UUM. ابدأ مستقبلك في UUM.
Come join us at UUM. 欢迎加入 UUM.
Universiti Utara Malaysia, the eminent management university.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani dan salam biru warna. Majlis pertamanya mengalu-alukan kehadiran Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Dato' Seri Utama AHMAD FUZI ABDUL RAZAK, Yang Berusaha Profesor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin Muhammad Sani, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Akademik dan Antarabangsa Universiti Utara Malaysia, Yang Berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. Nazariah Osman, Dekan Pusat Pengajian Antarabangsa Universiti Utara Malaysia, Div-Div Kehormat, Pegawai-Pegawai Kanan UUM, Sekretariat Majlis, seterusnya mahasiswa-mahasiswi, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, hadirin yang dihormati sekalian. Selamat datang ke program Ambassadorial Talk oleh Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Dato' Seri Utama AHMAD FUZI ABDUL RAZAK bertajuk Preparing Future-Ready Diplomats in a Rapidly Changing World, a Personal Perspective. Pertamanya, marilah kita sama-sama menzahirkan rasa syukur kehadrat Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala kerana dengan limpah perkenan dan izinnya dapat kita berhimpun pada majlis di pagi yang indah ini. Untuk makluman hadirin sekalian, Pusat Pengajian Antarabangsa SoIS UUM sentiasa komited dalam memperkasakan agenda akademik dan profesionalisme pelajar khususnya dalam bidang hubungan antarabangsa, diplomasi dan hal ehwal global. Sejajar dengan perubahan dinamik geopolitik dunia yang makin pantas, para pelajar memerlukan pendedahan realistik dan praktikal daripada tokoh-tokoh diplomasi berwibawa demi melahirkan graduan yang tangkas dan berdaya saing global future ready. Sehubungan itu, pihak SoIS mengambil inisiatif dengan menjemput Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Dato' Sri Utama AHMAD FUZI ABDUL RAZAK, mantan diplomat kanan negara dan tokoh korporat terkemuka bagi berkongsi perspektif pribadi dan pengalaman luas beliau sepanjang berkhidmat dalam arena diplomasi antarabangsa. Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, bagi memohon keberkatan majlis pada pagi ini, dipersilakan Al-Fadhil Ustaz Syarif Abdul Salam Syarif Saad untuk memimpin bacaan doa. Dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma ya alimu ya hakim. Kami merafakkan setinggi-tinggi kesyukuran kehadratmu ya Allah, kerana dengan limpah rahmat dan izinmu dapat kami berkumpul dalam majlis Ambassadorial Talk pada hari ini. Ya Allah, kurniakanlah keberkatan kepada majlis ini. Jadikanlah pertemuan dan perkongsian ilmu yang berlangsung sebagai medan menambah pengetahuan, memperkukuh hubungan serta memupuk persefahaman dan kerjasama yang baik dalam kalangan peserta dan tetamu yang hadir. Ya Allah, berkatilah tetamu kehormat kami, para penceramah, pihak penganjur serta semua yang hadir. Limpahkanlah kepada mereka kesihatan yang baik, ketenangan jiwa, kesejahteraan hidup dan kejayaan yang berterusan dalam melaksanakan amanah dan tanggungjawab masing-masing. Ya Allah, bukakanlah pintu-pintu hikmah dan kefahaman kepada kami. Kurniakanlah kepada para pelajar pensyarah dan seluruh warga universiti serta para tetamu sekalian ilmu yang bermanfaat, pemikiran yang matang serta kejayaan yang cemerlang di dunia dan akhirat. Ya Allah, peliharalah negara kami, para pemimpin kami, serta Universiti Utara Malaysia yang kami cintai daripada segala keburukan dan bencana. Limpahkanlah keamanan, kesejahteraan dan kemakmuran yang berpanjangan kepada kami semua. Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzaban nar. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Terima kasih Al-Fadhil Ustaz atas pimpinan bacaan doa sebentar tadi. Hadirin sekalian, majlis diteruskan dengan ucapan alu-aluan oleh Yang Berusaha Profesor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin Muhammad Sani, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Akademik dan Antarabangsa. Untuk itu, majlis mempersilakan Yang Berusaha Prof untuk menyampaikan ucapan. Dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Malaysia Madani, salam biru warna. Yang amat berbahagia, Tun Dato' Sri Utama AHMAD FUZI ABDUL RAZAK, Yang Berusia Profesor Madya Dr. Nazariah Osman, Dekan Pusat Pengajian Antarabangsa Universiti Utara Malaysia, Div-Div Kehormat Pegawai-Pegawai Kanan Universiti Utara Malaysia, Sekretariat Majlis, seterusnya, mahasiswa, mahasiswi, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang dihormati sekalian. Alhamdulillah, setinggi-tinggi kesyukuran dipanjat ke hadrat Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala kerana dengan limpah rahmat dan izinnya kita dapat bersama berhimpun pada pagi ini dalam program SoIS Ambassadorial Talk yang amat bermakna dan berprestij ini. Terlebih dahulu bagi pihak Universiti Utara Malaysia, saya ingin merakamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan dan ucapan terima kasih kepada Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Datuk Seri Utama AMAT FUZI ABDUL RAZAK kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama warga UM pada hari ini. Kehadiran Tun AMAT FUZI bukan sahaja merupakan satu penghormatan besar kepada universiti, malah memberikan peluang yang amat bernilai kepada para mahasiswa dan warga akademik dan juga warga pentadbiran UM untuk menimba ilmu serta pengalaman secara langsung daripada seorang tokoh diplomat negara yang disegani. Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, apabila kita berbicara mengenai diplomasi Malaysia, nama Tun AMAT FUZI sememangnya tidak asing lagi. Beliau telah menabur bakti dalam perkhidmatan tadbir dan diplomatik Malaysia sejak tahun 1972 dan mencapai ke puncak kejayaan sebagai Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Luar Negeri. Sepanjang perjalanan kerjayanya, beliau telah terlibat secara langsung dalam pelbagai rundingan dua hala dan pelbagai hala pengurusan sidang kemuncak ASEAN, OIC dan NAM, selain memainkan peranan penting dalam memperkukuh kedudukan Malaysia di pentas antarabangsa. Pengalaman luas beliau sebagai diplomat, pentadbir kanan, pemimpin korporat dan kemudiannya sebagai Yang di-Pertuan Negeri Pulau Pinang menjadi beliau antara tokoh yang paling layak untuk berkongsi pandangan mengenai dunia diplomasi contemporary. Hadirin sekalian, tajuk yang dipilih pada hari ini iaitu Preparing Future Ready Diplomats in a Rapidly Changing World, a Personal Perspective, amat relevan dengan realiti dunia semasa. Kita sedang hidup dalam era yang menyaksikan perubahan geopolitik yang pantas, persaingan kuasa besar yang semakin kompleks, cabaran keselamatan bukan tradisional dan juga tradisional, kemajuan teknologi kecerdasan buatan, perubahan iklim serta pelbagai konflik dan ketidaktentuan global yang memberi kesan langsung kepada hubungan antarabangsa dan juga memberi kesan langsung kepada kehidupan rakyat Malaysia secara amnya. Dalam keadaan dunia yang semakin kompleks ini, seorang diplomat masa hadapan tidak lagi hanya memerlukan pengetahuan mengenai protokol dan hubungan antara negara. Mereka juga perlu memiliki kemahiran, berfikir secara strategik, keupayaan yang menyesuaikan diri dengan perubahan, kefahaman mendalam terhadap isu global, kebolehan berunding, merentasi budaya serta kecekapan memanfaatkan teknologi dalam proses diplomasi moden. Justru saya percaya perkongsian pengalaman peribadi Tun AMAT FUZI pada hari ini akan beri perspektif yang sangat berharga kepada para pelajar. Kita full house ni, Tun, penuh di belakang para pelajar. Khususnya pelajar Pusat Pengajian Antarabangsa, SoIS. Pengalaman sebenar yang dikongsi oleh seorang diplomat yang telah berkhidmat di peringkat tertinggi negara pastinya tidak dapat diperolehi sepenuhnya melalui buku teks atau bilik kuliah semata-mata. Jadi program ini juga selari dengan aspirasi Universiti Utara Malaysia untuk melahirkan graduan yang mempunyai pemikiran global, berdaya saing di peringkat antarabangsa serta bersedia menghadapi cabaran masa hadapan. Pusat Pengajian Antarabangsa sentiasa komited memperkukuh pendedahan akademik dan profesional kepada para pelajar agar mereka mampu menjadi pemimpin, pembuat dasar dan diplomat yang berwibawa pada masa akan datang. Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, saya berharap para peserta akan memanfaatkan sepenuhnya peluang yang tersedia pada hari ini. Dengarlah dengan teliti pengalaman dan pandangan yang akan dikongsikan oleh Tun. Kemudian mungkin boleh dikemukakan soalan yang bernas dan jadikan sesi ini sebagai satu pengalaman pembelajaran yang bermakna dalam membentuk kefahaman kita mengenai cabaran serta masa depan diplomasi global yang semakin mencabar pada hari ini. Akhir kata, sekali lagi saya merangkamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan kepada Tun AMAT FUZI atas kesudian hadir ke Universiti Utara Malaysia. Dengan itu, dengan lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, saya dengan sukacitanya merasmikan penganjuran SoIS Ambassadorial Talk dan seterusnya menjemput Tun AMAT FUZI untuk menyampaikan syarahan beliau. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Yang Berhormat Prof atas ucapan sebentar tadi. Hadirin sekalian, kini tibalah acara yang dinantikan iaitu Ambassadorial Talk yang akan disampaikan oleh Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Datuk Seri Utama AHMAD FUZI ABDUL RAZAK. Untuk itu, majlis dengan sukacita dan mempersilakan Yang Berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. Nazarah Osman, Dekan SoIS selaku moderator untuk menjemput dan mengiringi Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun ke pentas bagi meneruskan sesi ini. Dipersilakan.
Terima kasih, saudari pengerusi majlis. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan selamat pagi. Before we proceed, please allow me to conduct this session in English, taking into consideration the presence of our international students and guests. Thank you for your kind understanding. It is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome all of you to this SoIS Ambassadorial Talk featuring one of Malaysia's most distinguished diplomats and statesmen, Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Datuk Seri Utama Ahmad FUZI bin Haji Abdul Razak. Today's topic, preparing future-ready diplomats in a rapidly changing world, a personal perspective, could not be more timely. We are living in an era marked by profound geopolitical shifts, technological disruption, climate challenges, economic uncertainty, and evolving security concerns. The diplomatic landscape is becoming increasingly complex, requiring future diplomats and public leaders to possess not only intellectual competence but also adaptability, strategic foresight, cultural intelligence, and ethical leadership. Our distinguished speaker has witnessed and contributed to many defining moments in Malaysia's diplomatic history. Having served in the Malaysian Diplomatic Service since 1972, culminating in his appointment as Secretary General of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he played an important role in advancing Malaysia's interests through bilateral and multilateral diplomacy. Beyond diplomacy, his experience in public administration, corporate leadership, and constitutional government provides a uniquely comprehensive perspective on leadership and international engagement in a changing world. For our students and public service officers, this forum presents a rare opportunity to gain practical insights that go beyond textbooks and theories. It is an opportunity to learn directly from someone who has involved in complex negotiations, represented national interests at the highest levels, and witness the evolution of diplomacy over several decades. On behalf of University UTARA Malaysia and the School of International Studies, we extend our deepest appreciation to Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Datuk Seri Utama Ahmad FUZI ABDUL RAZAK for graciously accepting our invitation and for sharing his invaluable experiences, wisdom, and reflections with us today. Before we begin with the presentation, I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing our esteemed speakers to the audience. Tun Ahmad FUZI was born in Sungai Bakap, Penang. Yang amat berbahagia Tun received his early education at King Edward School in Taiping, Perak, and SK Stowell in Bukit Mertajam, Penang. He continued his education at High School Bukit Mertajam, also in Penang, and SMK Anderson, Perak. His Excellency Tun then continued his studies at the University of Malaya and obtained a Bachelor of Arts honours in 1972. He also attended the UK Foreign Service Programme at the University of Oxford and obtained a diplomacy certificate in 1974. Yang amat berbahagia Tun built a 37-year career at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1972 and as an administrative and diplomatic officer with the following positions. I have to highlight Tun's experiences. Tun he started with the post of Assistant Secretary, Principal Assistant Secretary, Under Secretary, Deputy Secretary General 1, and Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from 2001 to 2006. Tun was representative abroad as Second Secretary in Moscow, Russia, Counselor in The Hague, Netherlands, Deputy High Commissioner in Canberra, Australia, Deputy Chief of Mission in Washington, United States of America, and High Commissioner in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Then, Tun was also the Director General of the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, IDFR, and Ambassador at Large to represent Malaysia at the high-level task force on the drafting of the ASEAN Charter and the high-level panel of the drafting of the terms of reference of the ASEAN Human Rights Body. Yang amat berbahagia Tun served as the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from 2001 to 2006. During his tenure, Yang amat berbahagia Tun was responsible for formulating and managing Malaysia's foreign policy and diplomatic relations at bilateral, regional, and multilateral levels, and represented Malaysia at ASEAN senior official meetings, Organization of Islamic Cooperation Senior Officials Meeting, bilateral negotiations with Brunei on the delimitation of maritime and land boundaries, and the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea regarding land reclamation by Singapore in and around Johor. Yang amat berbahagia Tun also played a significant role as Secretary General in organizing the Non-Aligned Movement NAM Summit and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation OIC Summit in 2003 and the ASEAN, East Asia and related summits in Kuala Lumpur in 2005. Yang amat berbahagia Tun was actively involved with the World Islamic Economic Forum, WIEF, since its inception, originally as OIC Business Forum in 2003. He has served as co-chairman, International Advisory Panel, member of the Board of Trustees and Secretary General of the WIEF Foundation from 2007 to 2021. Yang amat berbahagia Tun also ventured into corporate world by holding positions as chairman and board member of several public and private listed companies, including Proton Berhad, Amanah Raya Real Estate Investment Trust, Syarikat Takaful Malaysia Berhad, Puncak Niaga Holdings Berhad, Maybank Islamic Berhad, Seremban Engineering Berhad, PKT Logistics, Sdn Berhad, and Runhill Energy Resources, Sdn Berhad. So Tun has achieved so many achievements too long. So yeah, but I think I have to mention this as well. Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun was actively involved with various think tanks and foundations. Okay, among them is Honorary Fellow, Institute of Strategic and International Studies (ISIS) and Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations (IDFR). A bit more. Okay, on April 30th, 2021, Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun received the certificate of appointment as the 8th Yang Dipertua Negeri Pulau Pinang, Head of States of Penang, from His Majesty the 16th of the Yang Dipertuan Agong at Istana Negara. He completed his 4-year term on 30th April 2025. So, a bit more. In recognition of his service and contribution to the nation, Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun was awarded with several prestigious awards and honorary doctorate as follows. Honorary, actually Tun have so many, but I'm just going to mention one of them. Honorary Doctor of Philosophy in International Relations, University Science Malaysia in November 2024. So, Yang Berbahagia Tun is currently Chancellor, Binary University of Management and Entrepreneurship, BUME. Alright, so this is a bit about the background, the CV of Yang of Tun. Alright, so now let me continue with the format of the forum. Okay, before we begin, allow me to briefly explain the format of the forum. Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun will first deliver his presentation for approximately 45 minutes. 45 minutes. This will be followed by presentations from our two distinguished discussants who will provide their analysis, reflections, and critical engagement with the ideas and perspectives shared by Tun. Each discussant will be allocated 20 minutes for their presentation. Following the discussant's remarks, the floor will be open for a question and answer session with the audience, which is expected to last approximately 30 minutes. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is my great honor and privilege to invite Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Datuk Seri Utama Ahmad FUZI Abdul Razak to deliver his address entitled Preparing Future-Ready Diplomats in a Rapidly Changing World, a Personal Perspective. Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun, the floor is yours now.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berusaha Profesor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin Muhammad Sani, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Akademik dan Antarabangsa UUM, yang berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. Nazariah Osman, Dekan Pusat Pengajian Antarabangsa UUM, Dev Kohormat, Pegawai-pegawai kanan UUM, Sekretariat Majlis, seterusnya mahasiswa, mahasiswi, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now this is my second visit to your beautiful campus, I was here last year in conjunction with the launching of a publication by UUM on the successful planting of 1 million trees a day in Penang last year. I'm really grateful to UUM for the collaboration. I'm deeply honored and pleased to be here again this time to deliver this SOIS Ambassadorial talk at this prestigious university this morning. My gratitude goes to VC Professor Dr. Ahmad Martada Muhammad, Yang Berusaha Professor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin Muhammad Sani, Professor Dr. Zanareh Osman, Dean School of International Studies, my colleague, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Muda, and all those involved in hosting and organizing this special event this morning. I'm also grateful for the hospitality accorded to me during the course of my stay at the campus. Now, the topic given to me is preparing future-ready diplomats in a rapidly changing world, a personal perspective. Now, I'm supposed to speak as a mantan KSU of Wisma Putra, but as was alluded earlier by Professor Zanaria, I retired some 20 years ago. So please forgive me if my presentation sounds a bit rusty. Now, at the outset, let me say that this topic is not purely an academic topic. It is professionally important and deeply relevant to the future direction of Malaysia, to the survival of principled diplomacy that we so deeply cherished, to the role that Malaysian diplomats can play in a turbulent and uncertain world. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by addressing students, probably within this hall, intending to join the diplomatic service eventually. Now, as the next generation of diplomats, you will be entering the service at one of the most uncertain periods in modern history. During my time at Wisma Putra in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 20s, the world appeared relatively structured. We see clear security military alliances, clear ideological blocs, predictable institutions, and established multilateral systems. At the broader level, the collective achievements made during the period in various fields of human endeavor has transformed the world in ways once unimaginable and stand as a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, creativity, and the enduring capacity of people to imagine, innovate, and build a better future for mankind. Today, however, various trends have emerged as to cause concern, anxiety, and uncertainty affecting the interests of the community worldwide. These include, as alluded to before by Professor Zanaria himself, and geopolitical volatility, ideological polarization, selective application of international law, erosion of international norms and rules-based international system, economic fragmentation, weaponization of trade and technology, disruptive global supply chain, cyber attacks, technological disruption, information warfare, and climate emergencies, to name a few. Now, in place of the Cold War previously, we see unending wars and conflicts in Gaza, Lebanon, Ukraine, Iran, and the Gulf states, and tensions over the South China Sea, Taiwan, Cuba, Kashmir, and various parts of Africa. Even Greenland is not spared. All this led to division and polarization, forcing countries to take sides in pursuit of their national interest. Principles of fairness and international justice are being overshadowed by the brutal application of might over right. The Minab massacre, for example, which saw the tragic loss of 168 lives of innocent school children at the beginning of the US-Israel war on Iran, exemplified the height of inhumanity, religious discrimination, and loss of moral compass by so-called champions of liberal democracies. Inspired by US President Donald Trump, more and more countries are now taking a transactional approach in their economic relations with other countries. Globalization and multilateralism, once viewed as inevitable pathways to global prosperity, are now tempered by strategic competition, economic security, and protectionism. The consequential cost to the global community of all this is huge. Closure of major straits used for international navigation, for example, affect cost of living and influence inflation across continents worldwide. A single event in one corner of the world affects food prices, energy security, migration flows, and political and economic stability thousands of kilometers away. Artificial intelligence is fast reshaping labor markets. And as I said earlier, cyber attacks are threatening national infrastructure. Social media are destabilizing societies within ours. And increasingly, geopolitical competition is returning to the center of international affairs. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan once stated that more than ever before in human history, we share a common destiny. Today, that destiny is constantly evolving and becoming more and more complicated. Some would even say that the world as we know it is now gone. As observed by Antonio Gramsci, the Italian thinker, the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. That sentence alone perhaps better describe the current international order, if there is still one, than many policy papers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with that as a backdrop, what shape should diplomacy take? How should Malaysia structure its international engagements to achieve its foreign policy goals? I believe that, for one, the conduct of diplomacy can never be the same. Diplomacy can no longer be confined to elegant receptions, traditional protocol, diplomatic niceties, and formal negotiations in grand halls. A future-ready diplomat needs to adapt accordingly. You need to be more than a civil servant. In an age of uncertainty, you need to be capable of navigating uncertainty itself. Henry Kissinger once said, each generation must discover its own mission. We have seen how previous generations managed Cold War rivalry. But the new generation may have to manage fragmentation itself. The world today is becoming simultaneously more connected and interdependent, but at the same time, also more divided. We see unusual contradictions taking place. Countries trade heavily with one another, while simultaneously distrusting one another strategically. Technology creates efficiency, but also vulnerability. Social media connects societies while amplifying polarization. And artificial intelligence increases access to information while making misinformation easier to spread. This means future diplomats need to think differently and become comfortable operating in ambiguity. Now, some of you may wonder, in this rapidly changing age, does diplomacy still matter? I would argue it really matters, perhaps more than ever before, because diplomacy exists precisely to prevent competition from becoming a catastrophe. Diplomacy is civilization's alternative to conflict and tension. Its purpose is not perfection, but to prevent crisis the public never realizes almost happen. Contrary to popular perception, diplomacy is not weakness. The best diplomats are frequently invisible, precisely because they succeeded quietly. Now, this is best seen, perhaps, at the UN itself. With all its imperfections and subjected to heavy criticism, the UN itself remains relevant today. As Dag Hammarskjöld once stated, the UN was not created to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from hell. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now ask our students gathered here, what will future diplomacy require? Firstly and most importantly, and it is most basic to all of us, aspiring diplomats must be intellectually curious and widely read. Knowledge, after all, is power. A good diplomat never stops learning, as to always be up to date. Henry Ford, I think, once said that anyone who stops learning is old, and anyone who keeps learning stays young. And the greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young. Now, aspiring diplomats should have a wide knowledge and be able to hold a range of conversations in one sitting. And this can only be done, and this can only be achieved through wide reading. Francis Bacon who famously said, reading maketh a full man. You should read not only about national politics, foreign policy, bilateral, regional, and international relations, but also on a wide range of disciplines like economics, trade, investment, finance, energy, defense and security, history, arts and culture. I can go on and on until even religion, psychology perhaps, philosophy, civilization, medical science, and even outer space. Now, this can be very demanding indeed for all diplomats. And even all these are not exhaustive. Now, a general understanding of these disciplines is crucial as they become increasingly interconnected today. By way of example, Norway's recent decision to revoke the export license for the Naval Strike Missile NSM system to Malaysia that sparked a major bilateral diplomatic dispute and claims for compensation contains various dimensions that need to be diplomatically understood. At the same time, diplomats should also be good in scenario planning, strategic forecasting, risk assessments, long-term policy analysis, and crisis management, and be smart enough to be able to analyze trends, read intentions, understand personalities and body language, and anticipate developments even before they even happen. As observed by Alvin Toffler, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. This may indeed be a defining lesson for all aspiring diplomats. Now, secondly, diplomats must also be good at public speaking and strategic communication, and articulate in expressing their thoughts clearly, concisely, and with purpose, as the conduct of diplomacy essentially revolves around human relationship. To be well understood is extremely important, and equally important is the ability to draft and write well. You should be competent in drafting and preparing the various instruments of diplomatic practice, including messages, reports, media statement, memorandums, minutes, records of conversation, speeches, communique, and agreements, as expected by the ministry. Now, at the same time, you must be able to organize and prepare sensitive, high-level bilateral meetings, major regional and international summits, as well as negotiate and persuade, build trust, bridge differences, connect sectors, facilitate dialogue, and be adept at handling the media. On the specialized art of diplomacy and negotiation, Winston Churchill best described it when he was quoted, although subsequently verified as fake, to have stated that diplomacy is the art of telling people to go to hell in such a way that they ask for directions, or the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip. Somebody else suggested that a good diplomat is also someone who is able to sell ice to Eskimos. Now, humorous perhaps this may sound, but deeply true. Use of words to persuade and win over your opponents matter enormously in diplomacy and international affairs. One carefully phrased sentence can reduce tensions, whilst a somewhat reckless statement can escalate them. I remember vividly the controversy that arose when the then Foreign Minister, Tun Ghazali Shafi, in trying to be diplomatic, explained to the media that what the then PM Tun Mahathir meant was shoo and not shoot against the Vietnamese boat people coming into Malaysian territorial waters in the late 70s. Now, it is important that things like this should not arise that can cause a lot of controversy and perhaps even raising tensions affecting bilateral relations. Now, thirdly, future diplomats will be operating fully within an environment shaped by artificial intelligence, algorithmic influence, cyber vulnerabilities, digital disinformation, and instantaneous communication. Now, in previous decades, diplomacy moved rather slowly. A government statement issued in Kuala Lumpur, for example, might take days, if not lost along the way, before receiving international attention. Today, a diplomatic statement can trigger instant global reactions, including stock market volatility, political backlash, and social media campaigns. You must have seen how US and global markets react after President Trump's comments in his Truth Social that is followed today by millions across the world. Now, whether we agree or otherwise with his comments, or consider them presidential or stupid, Trump today unquestionably remains one of the most prolific users of social media in US modern history. Applauded by supporters, but heavily condemned by opponents, his daily postings or rantings can never be ignored. Now, this aspect is important for aspiring diplomats to understand. The information environment has fundamentally changed, and diplomacy is changing together with it. Fourthly, diplomats of today no longer communicate solely with governments. Their daily routine involves communicating simultaneously with international media, business corporations, financial markets, think tanks, digital audiences, activist networks, NGOs, and artificial intelligence systems, processing information globally in real time. Now, for smaller countries, digital diplomacy provides tremendous opportunities to articulate their narratives, amplify their voice, and project their influence far beyond traditional limitations. In many ways, digital tools have partially democratized influence, and strategic clarity can now shape conversations more effectively than before. Now, this is what countries like Israel and Singapore in particular are utilizing to their full advantage in defense of their respective national interests. Digital acceleration, however, also creates an environment where misinformation spreads rapidly, context disappears quickly, nuance is often lost, and outrage travels faster than facts. Poorly crafted statements can become globally amplified within hours as to make rectifications difficult. And it is perhaps one of the great paradoxes of modern diplomacy that needs to be well understood. Technology has made communication easier, but careful communication more difficult. Ladies and gentlemen, to be relevant and effective, the conduct of diplomacy must evolve with time. The digital age reminds us that information abundance does not always produce wisdom. Relying on ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and threads as major pillars of modern digital life and artificial intelligence may be advantageous, practical, and convenient to modern diplomats, but only if cleverly and judiciously applied. Completely relying and using them otherwise would only open them to criticisms of lack of originality and factual integrity, if not superficial research and even dishonesty. Future diplomats must also learn to be in control of the emotional discipline. They must learn not to react impulsively, not to confuse visibility with influence, and not to mistake online outrage with strategic reality. They must instead remain calm in a permanently accelerated world. This is not an easy skill to acquire. The medium is the message, as observed by Marshall McLuhan. Today, diplomats must understand both the message and the medium carrying it, because increasingly, perception itself can shape geopolitical outcomes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one other dimension that requires close attention by aspiring diplomats is the rise of geoeconomics and the need to study and strategically apply economic tools to achieve geopolitical and national security objectives. Increasingly, economics and diplomacy can no longer be separated, as we see sanctions affecting currencies, export controls shaping geopolitics, and semiconductors influencing security. This means future diplomats must understand geoeconomics seriously, not necessarily as economics per se, but at least the key elements involved, so as to enable Malaysia's missions abroad, for example, to become useful economic intelligence centers. Failure to understand geoeconomics may only cause them to struggle to interpret complex development economics and modern international competition accurately. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say something perhaps old-fashioned. I refer to character building. Now, character in diplomacy still matters enormously. In a world increasingly driven by speed, outrage, and performative behavior, credibility remains priceless. And credibility depends heavily on character. An aspiring diplomat must possess integrity, restraint, maturity, wisdom, and judgment, complemented with humility and the principles of good governance to be effective. All these contribute to high credibility in the person concerned. That is why diplomacy cannot be taught technically. It involves a gradual inculcation of deeply held values. Because at critical moments in their conduct of diplomacy, countries do not merely assess what you know, they assess whether you can be trusted. And this is a very important lesson to learn to be a good diplomat. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia was fortunate to have produced towering diplomats like Tun Ghazali Shafi at one time, Tan Sri Zain Azrai, Zakaria Ali, Zainal Abidin Sulong, Ibn Razali Ismail, and Tan Sri Ahmad Kamel. They're all my bosses before. They all have the necessary attributes of a good diplomat. Their intellectual clarity, confidence, strategic instincts, personal charisma, and exceptional command of the language, while serving under various leaders from Tunku Abdul Rahman, Tun Razak Hussein, Tun Hussein On, down the line to Tun Mahathir and Tun Abdullah Badawi, contributed significantly to the success of Malaysia's diplomacy and foreign policy. Indeed, they have all done well to put Malaysia on the world map. There were, of course, several other prominent figures, including political appointees, who have served with distinction at home and abroad, but who remain largely unknown as unsung heroes in Malaysia's diplomatic history. Now, the period under these figures saw Malaysia initiating and satisfactorily resolving various complex bilateral, regional, and international issues, including those relating to Indonesia's konfrontasi, Indonesia's archipelagic concept, Pulau Batu Putih and related issues with Singapore, impact of Singapore's reclamation works on Malaysia, land and boundary delimitation with Brunei and Indonesia, and overlapping maritime claim in the Gulf of Thailand. We have also been successful in the early establishment of ASEAN, the extension of the membership of ASEAN, the setting up of the ASEAN Charter and ASEAN Human Rights Commission, the ASEAN Growth Triangles, and numerous ASEAN declarations, MOUs, and agreements. We have been also successful early on with regard to the proposal on the establishment of the Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality, ZOFPAN, and Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapon Free Zone. The East Asia Summit and related summits, the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, and all the other international conferences, including the Law of the Sea Conference, the OIC Summit, CHOGM, NAM, and the APEC Summit. Now, what is relevant to aspiring diplomats to appreciate here is that whatever success achieved by them was as a result of hard bargaining during the course of the negotiations, complemented by judicious compromise where appropriate, without sacrificing Malaysia's national interest. Now, this is one special diplomatic skill that needs to be learned and acquired by our new generation of diplomats. Such skill can only come with knowledge, experience, exposure, good personal relationship, and the unique ability to draw the line between what is negotiable and acceptable as a compromise and what is non-negotiable and completely unacceptable as to invite strong criticisms of betrayal of national interest from well-informed members of the Malaysian public. In our long history of diplomatic negotiations, we do have our fair share of failures and unresolved issues where no compromise or agreement was achieved even after years and years of bilateral and multilateral negotiations. These include the Bukit Jeli overlapping land dispute with Thailand, for example, the water issue and the remaining Pulau Batu Putih related issues with Singapore, the maritime delimitation issue in Borneo and the Straits of Malacca with Indonesia, the land delimitation issue with Brunei, and the ASEAN 5-point consensus on Myanmar, to name a few. Now, all this and numerous other unresolved issues now await further painstaking negotiations by the next generation of Malaysian diplomats. To understand them in detail is extremely important for all of you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to digress a bit here to highlight one aspect of Malaysia's foreign policy important to aspiring diplomats to appreciate. Some of you may wonder whether countries like Malaysia can still matter in a world increasingly shaped by major powers such as the US and China and perhaps Russia. I believe the answer is yes, and this is a continuous challenge for Malaysian diplomats. Malaysia cannot compete through sheer skill or military might, but we can compete through relevance, credibility, coalition building, and strategic positioning and balance. The advent of digital diplomacy will allow us to project our influence globally, as influence is not determined solely by military size, but more so by trust, connectivity, technological capability, financial relevance, and diplomatic usefulness. Malaysia still possesses important strengths as we remain moderate, multicultural, connected, strategically located, and trade-oriented with abundant natural resources. We also enjoy credibility within ASEAN, where ASEAN's centrality, which we fully support, has become the foundational diplomatic principle to serve as the broader primary driving force in shaping the political, economic, and security architecture of the broader Asia-Pacific and Indo-Pacific regions. Malaysia does not need loud voices, but thoughtful voices articulated by principled leadership. In short, Malaysia can become more important and not less in unstable times, because when major powers clash the world often needs countries capable of bridging, mediating, moderating, facilitating, convening, and stabilizing tensions. Our track record on all this is well recognized regionally and internationally. Now, this is where aspiring Malaysian diplomats can prepare themselves to contribute meaningfully to international diplomacy by increasingly becoming a strategist, communicator, economic analyst, geopolitical interpreter, coalition builder, and crisis manager simultaneously. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the role of institutions like UUM is most crucial in preparing future-ready diplomats. Being well established, the UUM can develop a strong theoretical foundation for students to dwell deeply into international relations and related multidisciplinary studies relevant to the professional conduct of diplomacy. Formulate programs on diplomacy that evolve alongside national, regional, and global priorities and realities. Provide opportunities for students to undertake brainstorming diplomatic sessions, simulations, internship, diplomatic engagements, and regional and international exposure. And last but not least, become a strategic research and intellectual hub to contribute fresh ideas, initiatives, and alternative policy solutions relating to diplomacy and international relations relevant to protecting Malaysia's national interests. Now, I hope all this could be given due consideration by the university in close consultations with the IDFR and Wisma Putra and the relevant think tanks. What is important is to ensure that there is no disconnect between what is academically provided by UUM to our students and the needs and priorities of our diplomats upon taking up their career at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude with one final thought. Diplomacy is not about prestige or glamour. Diplomacy is not merely employment. It is commitment and dedication. It is resilience and adaptability. It is patriotism. It is national service. As a profession, it can be highly demanding. Quality matters. It is not enough to be a diplomat, but a good diplomat. To be willing to sacrifice for the country, including at times living a nomadic life. But ultimately, diplomacy is about responsibility. The responsibility to resolve tension and conflicts by peaceful means. The responsibility to steer the country bilaterally, regionally, and internationally well. The responsibility to navigate uncertainty without losing strategic clarity. And the responsibility to protect Malaysia's national interest at all times. I believe this is precisely why diplomacy matters. Living in an interconnected world that we have today, no country can truly succeed alone. And so to all students gathered here today, if you choose to join the diplomatic service, you are not merely choosing a career. You are, for all intents and purpose, choosing to represent your country, your civilization, and your generation before the world. Your greatest challenge is not merely to understand the world, but to help shape the world and prevent it from becoming a more dangerous place to live in than it already is. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun, for that insightful and thought-provoking presentation. We are truly honored to benefit from your wealth of experience and invaluable perspectives on future of diplomacy and diplomatic leadership. So now, we shall now proceed to the discussion session. May I invite our distinguished professor, our distinguished discussants, Professor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin Muhammad Sani, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Internationalization, University UTARA, Malaysia, and Associate Professor Dr. Aminur Rashid Yatiban from the School of International Studies, University UTARA, Malaysia, to join Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun on the stage for the discussion session. To begin, I would like to invite, okay, please, Prof. Azizuddin and Associate Professor Dr. Aminur Rashid. To begin, I would like to invite Professor Azizuddin to share his analysis, reflections and comments on the presentation delivered by Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nazaria, and also Yang Berbahagia Tun. Yeah. I think for me, I always bring my small books here, notebooks, just to capture some ideas from discussion and also from, any deliberation that that involving me directly. So okay, for me, it's my honor, I think, to be able to sit in front of all of the audience here and also with Tun, and to listen to the talk that you deliver just now. And I try my best to actually to summarize all the talk just now, and also probably share some of the my probably knowledge and also experience probably, in order to really share together with the with the students here. I think from the starting of the talk just now, I can see Dr. Nazaria explaining about the background of Tun, and I think from student here, it's not easy to become a diplomat. You have to be not only learn in universities, but also at the same time get experience, get involved in the foreign service, and climb the ladder to become later on probably the target as to become ambassadors. And in order to become ambassadors, you have to prepare yourself to certain length. But I think based on the experience of Tun FUZI just now, I think he got a lot of experience dealing with negotiations and also with the engagements with various parties, countries, and make him well versed on this particular area. For me, from the talk just now, first of all, things that we need to understand in the world today, that is we live in the interdependent world where everything is interconnected. Something happen somewhere around the world, it will affect us. War happened in Iran, somehow it affects us. When we also have price hikes of oil in the countries, and suddenly we are all struggles. And also we have to change the way we are doing things, normal things, particularly even in UUM. Just to let Tun know, probably we soon going to, meaning that in terms of learning process in UUM, probably we have to go online, because in order to avoid, the issue of oil that we are facing today, then meaning, probably by next September, still we are waiting for the Ministry of Higher Education, whether the ministry, what kind of mechanism that we have to follow when it comes to work from home, because that's something that is triggered by the war in Iran. Then we also have to do something with regard to this, But Few things that I think I need to highlight, which is I think very important for the students, particularly here, to understand, is that changes of world that we are living now from unipolar that we experienced since the end of Cold War in 1990s, and now I think we can see the beginning of what many scholars arguing about. We are entering into the multipolar worlds, when we can see that China becomes so strong as a major power, and Russia now. In fact, we are dealing with trade war before, and some also argue that we are facing the technological war between US and China. And the reality is that, with the war in Iran, we can see the bargaining power between countries in favor of Iran right now. So in a way that we can see that, directly, indirectly, major power get involved in the war. We can argue whether it's a proxy war or not, but that's just a reality that we're facing now. And the war still continue, even though I think Donald Trump mentioned about many times, whether you want to believe or not, but he keeps saying that, that the negotiation and diplomacy is going very well, and probably the war will end soon. Then suddenly, for example, yesterday we heard that Apache helicopters got attacked by the Iran, and war continue. So that's the reality that we are facing now, which uncertainties happen in the world. So what we need to understand is this: as a new diplomat, probably we Tun just now talked a lot about his experience, but also at the same time try to prepare the future diplomats. Particularly most of our students now, your ambition probably one day you can become diplomats and ambassadors. Few other things that I think very important that you need to prepare. I think the first point that I think very interesting mentioned by Tun is you have to be knowledgeable in many disciplines. Not only in international relations, but you have to understand about so many things, including medicine, including economics. Even though we need to understand about geopolitics, but at the same time, so we need to understand about geoeconomic reality in the world today. So Tun also mentioned about several scholars like Henry Kissinger, I think, great scholars, thinkers, and also politicians. Used to serve as a Secretary of State of US before. And for example, Tun also mentioned about knowledge is power. I think that's the quote coming from Francis Bacon and also Michel Foucault, for example. And several other scholars that Tun mentioned. That's in a way try to enlighten us about the reality of the world today, that we need to ensure that we need as much knowledge as possible in order to really, to really facing the uncertainty that we are facing in the world today. So another thing is, I think Tun also mentioned about, Tun, you mentioned about scenario plannings, which is something that we need to embed into many of our learning process in today's university. Scenario planning, for example, is something that we need to predict in the future and what we need to plan towards that future. Either it come or not is another aspect, but the important thing is we need to prepare for that. Including body language, certain skills of crisis management. These few important things that I think for the students need to understand and learn. And at the same time also, certain set of skills, like public speaking, communication skills, language. I think to become a diplomat, we need to probably learn, meaning that we need to be multilingual. We cannot just simply learn English, but also we need to learn other languages, for example, like Mandarins, become the Spanish, or other German's language, and not only proficiency in the language, but at the same time really understand the linguistic of that language. So that's how unique the role of the role of diplomat. We used to have friends here that work with Kofi Annan, I think, last time. Lieutenant Colonel Arwah, Lieutenant Colonel Ahmad Ghazali, who worked with Kofi Annan, and his job is taking minutes in negotiation with the Iraqis after the Gulf War. So in taking notes, he needs to really share, when after taking notes, he needs to go and meet the counterparts from the Iraqi military and check whether they have a similar notes, point that taken during the meeting. Because any mistakes, any misinterpretation can be detrimental to the diplomacy and also relation between United Nations, or even in context of bilateral and multilateral situation with countries that we are dealing for. So that's, I think, is very important. We need to, to understand and have that kind of skill that need to be ready. Probably two last point. I need to mention that, Tone also mentioned about the importance of Southeast Asia. Still the issue of reclamation issues, maritime issue, and Tone directly involved in some of the negotiation with Singaporean and also Indonesian, and now I think Strait of Malacca has become very important, for not only for trade but for geopolitics and also geoeconomic matters, So that's why I think we need to understand, even though we are small, Malaysia, we have 32 million population, is not enough, probably we need to get into 70 million pretty soon. If not, then in order to become a middle power. That's another point that I want to just take up here. We, Malaysia, even though we're small, but we play significantly in the negotiation and diplomacy around the world. So we try to behave ourselves as a middle power, because we cannot be a major power because it's too small. We can be a middle power that can influence countries and also major power in dealing of many situations. For example, that we always voice out our concern with regard to genocide in Gaza, for example, and other conflicts in other part of the world. In Africa, for example, representing poor nation, dealing with this many issues, particularly economic issues. So that's why I think that is important that the country itself to put forward the agenda, and that at the same time going to strengthen our nation as a whole in all of this very complex geopolitical, geoeconomic world. And the last point I think I want to mention here is about the diplomat. Diplomat must be very patriotic. They are representing the countries. They have to be behave properly. If not, it will reflect the country that he or she represent. So that's why I think it's very important to for the future diplomat, as mentioned by Tun, that we need to really prepare ourselves in many aspects, and I think what the role of UM can bring in here. As an institution of higher learning, we become the bridge with communities, with the industries, with the the governments, departments, with the particularly the governments, and also with the people. So that's, I think, the role of university, which is very important nowadays. Not only as a center for learning, teaching and learning, but also as a center that we can bridge knowledge about the world to everybody, including particularly the people that we also engage. So that's why I think in the case of this, I can guarantee to Tun that we actually the only School of International Studies, I think the only schools that specialize in international relations and also international business that have ever established in the countries. So we play our role in this matter and make sure that we're going to produce these young talents back upstairs, to one day to represent Malaysia perfect. I won't say perfect, but I think I hope perfectly as a diplomat, and of course bring proud not only to the country but also to universities and also to the people as a whole. So by that, I think thank you very much. So pass back to you, Dr. Nazarah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Azizuddin, for your insightful observations and thoughtful commentary. I'm not going to comment a lot, but the more we speak about the role of the university and the responsibility of the students, our younger generations, and also the lecturers at the university, I could feel the burden when Tone mentioned all the characteristics of future diplomats, which are you guys. You are future diplomats. If you listen carefully to what Tone mentioned, and Prof. Azizuddin did give his commentary on that, it is not easy. It's no more an easy job. It's no more a glamorous life to become a diplomat or ambassador. So I really hope that if you really, wanted to become a diplomat, be, an exceptional diplomat like our Tone here. I'm sure that you could see how finesse Tone as a diplomat and ambassador, right? So take Tone as your inspiration to become a well-known diplomat one day to represent Malaysia. All right? Okay. So now we shall call our second discussant, Associate Professor Dr. Aminur Rashid Yatiban. So Dr. Aminur Rashid Yatiban, please, we would like to hear your reflections and comments on Tone's presentation. And the floor is yours, Associate Professor Dr. Amin.
Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Nazarah Osman, as the moderator and the Dean of School of International Studies. Yang amat berbahagia, Tun Ahmad FUZI Abdul Razak, as our distinguished guest today and our distinguished speaker, that he shared a lot with us today. And thank you to Professor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin as well, as our fellow discussant today, and also the Deputy Vice Chancellor of UUM, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all today? Good, yeah. I believe that everybody are full with all the infos, with all the vast experience that been shared by our Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun this morning, and also Prof. Aziz. Yeah. So, how do you feel to become the future-ready diplomats? Are you all scared? With all the challenges here and there, right? Yeah, and this is very a challenging situation, and I do agree with Ton. Yes, it's not an easy things, but then this the first point that I would like to touch on, that some may see that this is very challenging and even maybe scaring. Yeah. By the way, guys, let me share here that I do agree with Tony that diplomacy is not only relevant today, but it is crucially demanded to deal with what sociologists term as the world with polycrisis. Yeah? It's not only polygamy, but it's polycrisis, with all the crises here and there. And it seems that the crisis not even ended, cannot even resolve. To say, yesterday I was with Esro Awani, and they asked me whether the escalation or the crisis between Israel and Iran, and as well as the US there, will end soon. I would say no. It's a straightforward no. Because we can see the endurance of the crisis. Not only, for example, when we are talking about Palestine issue, it's not only 1 year or 2 years, but a very long yes. So on that, to complement Tuan's masterful exposition, I wish to offer a commentary that hopefully bridges the timeless and the contemporary. My intervention will focus on 4 critical points. That I would say the first one, to see the diplomats not only from the textbooks that we look into, but also to look into the historical and spiritual foundations of diplomacy drawing from the Prophet Muhammad's era. That's number 1. And number 2, to look into the indispensable role of principal diplomacy and the currency of global trust. Number 3, the rise of non-state actors. That normally people think about diplomacy is all about state actors, everybody representing the states and so on. So I would like to share the rising of non-state actors and civil society in filling the vacuum left by state paralysis. And number 4, the necessity of integrating the so-called revealed knowledge, some may use it divinity or theology and so on, as also an alternative source and guiding framework to resolve seemingly intractable modern conflicts. So let us look into the first point, that I believe that what Tuan mentioned, how important to widen the scope of knowledge of diplomats. Indeed, this is very crucial point. That's why I would like to share that while conventional textbooks often trace the origins of modern diplomacy to what? International relations students? So for example, to the Westphalian Treaty, right? And the Congress of Vienna, for example, we must look further back to an era that mastered the synthesis of moral clarity and strategic pragmatism, the diplomatic missions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So here, guys, let us look into. Prophet Muhammad operated in a highly volatile Arabian Peninsula characterized by tribal warfare, deeply entrenched biases, and zero-sum security dilemmas. Yet he constructed a sophisticated diplomatic apparatus utilizing his senior companions, men and women who embodied the gold standard of cultural intelligence, emotional resilience, and absolute integrity. I will bring 2 examples. For example, have you come across the name Mus'ab bin Umair? Well, we may remember all the Western figures, diplomats, and so on. But this is the first envoy sent by the Prophet Muhammad to Yathrib, or well known as Medina. Okay? So guys, ladies and gentlemen, interestingly, Mus'ab was not sent with an army or financial leverage. He was armed solely with persuasive rhetoric, impeccable manners, and deep empathy. He understood the nuances of the local tribal dynamics, engaging both elites and commoners. His mission was a masterclass in soft power. He successfully shifted the socio-political alignment of an entire city-state through dialogue, laying the groundwork for the constitution of Medina, or some may call it as Medina Charter. Secondly, Ja'far bin Abi Talib. Another stellar example, Ja'far bin Abi Talib, who led the Muslim delegation to the Christian kingdom of Abyssinia, or Habsha. You may know the king of Habsha during that time, well known as Najashi. Najashi. So what happened there? While Ja'far bin Abi Talib and the Muslim delegation seeking asylum from Quraysh persecution, when confronted by Najashi, the king, and challenged by the counter diplomacy of the Quraysh, that during that time they sent Amr bin al-As. Yeah? Ja'far did not compromise his principle, nor did he display arrogance. Instead, he deployed brilliant cross-cultural communication. By reciting verses from Surah Maryam, for example, he established common theological and ethical ground with the Christian monarch. He secured asylum not through geopolitical horse trading, but by appealing to universal values of justice and human dignity. So the key lessons here that we can see the primacy of character, amanah. Yeah? And Tun mentioned about the importance of, although it sounds conventional, yeah, but the importance of building the character of the diplomats. Yeah? That, in this case, with amanah, and also strategic flexibility, a principle rigidity. So that the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, for example, demonstrated that a future-ready diplomat must know when to make tactical concession for long-time strategic peace without compromising core existential values. Yeah? And let us move into the second point, yeah, on the diplomats of principle and geopolitics of trust. This brings me directly to the first key element of future-ready diplomats, or the first character, yeah? The absolute necessity of being a diplomat of principle who upholds religious values, ethics, and international law consistently, rather than selectively. And here, I would like to take our attention to the latest case, for example, on Germany's diplomatic overreach and the global south. Yeah? And a stark contemporary manifestation of this reality can be observed in the Germany's recent geopolitical setbacks, particularly its struggle to maintain institutional leverage and its bid for a structural role within the United Nations Security Council, UNSC. Historically respected for its avoidance politic or peace policy for Germany and its commitment to multilateralism, especially after the unification of Germany, Germany's recent foreign policy has undergone a severe crisis of legitimacy due to its unconditional, uncritical pro-Israel stance amidst the devastating conflicts in Gaza, or the genocide in Gaza, the wider Palestine territory, and Lebanon. By prioritizing historical guilt and domestic political consensus over the universal application of international humanitarian law, Berlin created a glaring double standard. While vocal about violations in Ukraine, for example, its silence or active justification of the genocide actions in Gaza alienated the global south. The consequences for German diplomacy have been severe. Erosion of trust, a multilateral paralysis that we can see Germany's inability to garner wide coalition support among non-aligned nations has directly hampered its long-term diplomatic ambitions, proving that when a state abandons ethical consistency, it squanders its diplomatic capital. A third point on recognizing and empowering civil society roles. So here, a future-ready diplomats is the recognition that the monopoly of the nation-state over international relations has permanently dissolved. The future belongs to network diplomacy, where sub-state actors, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and transnational citizen movement play a decisive role in shaping global outcomes. Let us look into one example of the global Sumut flotilla. Yeah? Nowhere this shift more apparent than in the ongoing humanitarian catastrophe in the Gaza Strip. For decades, traditional state diplomacy, hampered by the structural flaws of the UNSC, the abuse of the veto power, and realpolitik calculations, has failed to bring an end to the illegal siege and systematic aggression against the Palestinian people. Where states fail, civil society step into the vacuum. And we can see the global Sumut Flotilla stands as a magnificent testament to this phenomenon, comprising activists, human rights defenders, lawyers, doctors, and citizens from dozens of nations. The flotilla represents a grassroots manifestation of sumut or steadfastness. When state actors are paralyzed by geopolitical calculations, alhamdulillah, civil society becomes the conscience of humanity. So they can do breaking the siege and shifting the narrative that we can see here. A future-ready diplomats cannot afford to look down upon civil society roles from their ivory towers in Geneva, New York, or even Putrajaya. They must learn to, one, act as bridges, to co-op, collaborate, and facilitate the work of credible NGOs. Secondly, harness track 2 and track 3 diplomacy. For those who learn and take the course diplomacy, there are track 2 and track 3 of diplomacy. So this will focus to utilize grassroots movement to apply pressure where traditional state-to-state channels are blocked. And thirdly, listen to the global street. The policy of a nation must reflect the ethical consciousness of its people, which is often expressed most clearly through civil society action. And my last point, the appreciation of revealed knowledge in complex crises. I believe this is not to ask you as future diplomats to become ustaz or ustazah, but we have to widen the scope and even to take these kind of sources as among the important or alternative sources to look into. That I wish to emphasize this, perhaps the most unconventional, yet I believe a vital component for diplomats emerging from the Muslim world like here Malaysia. The appreciation and integration of various guiding sources, particularly revealed knowledge or ilmu wahyu, in resolving deeply complex existential geopolitical crises. For over a century, secular academic frameworks have dominated international relations theory, whether through the lens of realism, liberalism, of constructivism. Conflicts are systematically analyzed through materialistic metrics, balance of power, resource allocation, and border security. However, when we look at the prolonged multi-generational aggression and occupation occurring in Gaza, for example, these secular frameworks consistently fail to provide long-term solutions. Why? Because they treat these conflicts merely as real estate disputes or security dilemmas, completely ignoring the metaphysics, historical, and deeply spiritual dimensions attached to the land. So here, there is the need, the importance of integration, the revealed knowledge into modern statecraft, I believe. Revealed knowledge provides modern diplomats, inshallah, with a higher ethical architecture, what classical scholars refer to as maqasid shar'iyah. When applied to international relations, this framework shifts the conversation from transient political compromise to absolute unshakable pillars of justice. For example, from secular framework lens, a power asymmetry might makes right minor concessions to the oppressed. By the way, from Maqasid Sharia framework, absolute justice is the foundation. A peace is impossible, almost impossible, without the eradication of oppression. That's why what we can see, why we cannot resolve the issue in Israel, because we allow Israel go scot-free, unpunished. And justice should be served. And of course, Israel need to be punished. Like for those in dealing with robbers, for example. How can we allow robbers to go scot-free? Then this maqasid syariah not only look into the interests of the so-called might power or the superpowers, but the justice is even more important to be upheld. Okay? By utilizing revealed knowledge as a guiding source, a future-ready diplomats gains moral clarity. They understand that the occupation of Al-Aqsa or the carpet bombing of civilians in Beirut recently cannot be negotiated away under the guise of regional stability only. It provides a vocabulary of resistance and justice that resonates deeply with billions of people across the Muslim world and the broader global South who refuse to accept the normalization of tyranny. As a conclusion, we really appreciate what Tun, Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun shared with us today, a very, very important invaluable points that have been shared. And he has given us a magnificent blueprint of what a diplomat must look like in this rapidly changing world. And here, I would like to share as a conclusion that the future-ready diplomats, they must be historically grounded, drawing inspiration from the impeccable soft power and ethical diplomacy of Prophet Muhammad and the companions. They must be unwavering in principle, recognizing that Germany's diplomatic, for example, missteps in the global South prove that the loss of moral consistency leads to the loss of global influence. They must, the future-ready diplomat must be network-oriented, embracing and empowering civil society initiatives like the Global Sumut Flotilla to bypass a state inaction. And lastly, they must be spiritually enlightened, confident enough to bring a revealed knowledge and higher ethical objectives into international forums to tackle the world's most agonizing injustices. The world is changing, yes. The structure of power are shifting, undoubtedly. But as Tone has shown us through his life's work, the core attributes of great diplomacy, integrity, wisdom, courage, and compassion remain eternal. With that, I end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Associate Professor Dr. Abinur Rashid. Listening to your presentation is like, watching you on TV actually. And my mind is actually overloaded with information, but I don't know about other people, but I'm sure that I could see the reflection made by Associate Professor Dr. Abinur Rashid from what being presented by Tun. This is the reflection of Dr. Abinur Rashid. That is the importance of revealed knowledge, maqasid syariah in diplomacy. In which I don't, because actually I used to teach diplomacy. I never thought of it. I thought that because Tun was because we were familiar. We are so familiar with with the Western scholars, But when Dr. Abinur Rashid mentioned about this about the revealed knowledge, about what else, Dr. Amin? About the maqasid syariah, makes me think, it's true. So perhaps more research, more readings, more discussion needs to be carried out on this. So I'm sure that, at least you learn something. So this is the reflection of Associate Professor Dr. Abinur Rashid. And now, so this is the most awaited time for you. I'm sure that now I would like to open the session for question and answer. Okay? So all audience are welcome to ask our panelists here. You can ask Tun, you can ask Professor Dr. Azizuddin, and you can also ask Associate Professor Dr. Abinur Rashid. So I would like to open this session for question and answer session. I'm sure that you have so many things to ask, right? Okay, please introduce yourself. Please proceed to the nearest microphone, and please identify yourself by letting us know your name and your course. All right, thank you.
Alright. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Farid. I am international student from Indonesia. Now I'm studying master in international political economy. So actually I have 2 questions for Tun. Honestly, this is my great honor and great experience. My first question is, what is the special characteristic of Malaysian diplomacy since Malaysian independence? What is the special characteristic that make Malaysia now more prosperity, more stable if we compare with other Asian countries? So my next question, the second question is, as we know, for now on, we live on post-truth era of diplomacy, and we live in the new international norm that called weaponized interdependence, that really demonstrate by what United States did in Venezuela, what United States did in Iran. If we don't think like Tun said before, if we only think like the ordinary diplomat, we can only see that the international geopolitical and economical realm now only talk about the crude oil. But what really the US did is not merely about the oil, but they really want to use that oil to choke, to cut off the supply to China. Why United States really? Why China really bother United States? Because as we know, since 2018 there are trade war, and now the Chinese economy is become rapidly enhancing. Because what support them? What support Chinese economy? Chinese economy really supported by the technology, of course, and the AI. And what is the backbone of the AI? The backbone of the AI is semiconductor. So we go back to Malaysia. What I observe now, Malaysia since 2024, under the Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, have enacted the National Semiconductor Strategy Plan. And since 2024, Malaysia now have rapidly enhancing their capacity of semiconductor industry. And even now, the Pulau Pinang has been called as the Silicon Valley from the East. And now Malaysia really lead the ASEAN as the most big country in the ASEAN that have capacity to do the ATP process of semiconductor. So my second question is the semiconductor industry can be the new backbone of Malaysian leverage of diplomacy strategy, like what Tun Mahathir did in the past? So thank you. That's my 2 questions for me.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that very important question. Your first question is on the characteristic of Malaysian diplomats. I think the diplomacy, insofar as the diplomatic practice in Malaysia is concerned, I think we have seen how it has evolved over the years since independence until today. The scenario has changed, as we have discussed before, and so diplomats have to adjust and adapt accordingly. But there is one thing that I would like to stress here, and this is something that relates to the position of Malaysia as a middle power. As I mentioned, we are not a big country. Malaysia geographically And population-wise, it's nothing compared to Indonesia. So it is important for us to understand that and to know our strength and our limitation. But like all countries, the important thing is to know where our national interest lies, to understand what is the basic national interest that we need to protect. And this applies to all countries, not only Malaysia, but other countries within the ASEAN region as well. Malaysia, as a country, knows its strength. At one time, we have, for example, if you recall, Prime Minister Malaysia, at that time, Tun Mahathir, initiated a number of things. One of this is the East Asian Economic Group, or caucus. But it was not well received by many of the ASEAN countries as well. And for a number of reasons, Prime Minister Mahathir was criticized as a little Sukarno, if you recall. So that itself shows that for Malaysia and for Malaysian diplomats, we have to know our strength and our limitation and act accordingly. There are certain initiatives that we can undertake, that we should undertake through our own ideas and getting the support of the other countries. But there are a number of things that is beyond our control. And Malaysian diplomats need to adjust accordingly in line with that situation. So this is my response to your first question. To your second question, whether Malaysia would rely on semiconductors and so on, of course, I was in Penang for 4 years, and we have seen how much the government has spent in terms of policy and resources to promote the development of Penang as the center for the production of semiconductors. I think in many ways we have been very successful. We have managed to draw in investment from many countries before, and Penang was one of the pioneer states within Malaysia to undertake this industrial development. The government, as far as the federal government is concerned, as I understand it, is placing a lot of importance and helping the Penang state government to further improve and advance its achievement and progress and success in this particular field. And this is literally the future for many countries. We need to go into specialized investment, to go into high technology. We need to develop and train our people to undertake this particular sector and develop this sector accordingly. I believe that based on the policies of the government and what is being done now, we are on the right track. We know where we want to lead the country towards to, and steps are now being taken together with all the agencies concerned to ensure that we'll be able to achieve success in this particular field. And we hope also, beyond that, to help other countries within the region. At one time, we used to have this so-called foreign policy of helping thy neighbor. I think he is very much still prosper thy neighbor. Is very much in place now in many ways. Where we can, we are doing that. Just now, Professor mentioned about the role of NGOs. Malaysia, being a small country, is even active in sending our own small delegation to take part in the flotilla in Gaza. This is part and parcel of what I think we are trying to do now to help the promotion of this particular objective. I'm digressing a little bit here, but coming back to your point, we hope that this particular sector is something that would be the future for a country like Malaysia in terms of industrial and technological development in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Tun. Any more questions from the audience? Yes, please. Question in bahasa Malaysia is also welcome. Boleh bertanya dalam bahasa Malaysia juga. Tun boleh bercakap Melayu. Walaupun Tun nampak seperti Mak Saleh sebab ada yang kata kat saya, Tun ni Mak Saleh ke? So bolehlah tanya.
Selamat tengah hari. Saya tanya dulu ya. Nama saya Sunshine Jaupe, saya pelajar semester kedua, pelajar International Student Affairs Management. So my question is the main principle of Malaysia's diplomatic style of being neutral on the big superpowers like the US and China is really beneficial to Malaysia as a developing country. So because of the recent issues, the government of Norway, they revoked the license for export the naval strike missiles to Malaysia, which caused a really huge problem to the Ministry of Defense. And because Malaysia is not an ally to them. So my question, should Malaysia remain neutral or is it time to take sides? Thank you.
I think the question is directed also to me, I believe. Yeah, I think as a country, we have been adhering and practicing the principle of neutrality. I mentioned earlier also about ZOFPAN and also the Southeast Asia nuclear weapon-free zone. These two elements, I think, remain as an important dimension of our foreign policy. I do not foresee Malaysia changing its position. Now, if you look at the history of diplomatic history of Malaysia, during the time of Tunku Abdul Rahman, well, we were identified as being pro-Western, anti-communist, strongly anti-communist and pro-Western. But subsequently, changes took place during the time of Tun Razak, when we become closer to the region, and we believe that neutrality is the way forward for a small country like Malaysia. And subsequently, this was followed by the prime ministers after him, Tun Husseinon, Tun Abdullah Badawi, as well as Tun Mahathir, Tun Abdullah Badawi, and so on and so forth. And this remains as an important dimension of foreign policy. Now, we need to strike a proper balance as a small country. Some people say that as a small country, it's good for us to be like Kancil. I don't know, I believe you know what the small animal is called Kancil. How to maneuver and steer yourself in such a way that that you ensure that your national interest is always protected, and no policies or actions taken by other countries would harm the national and the political and security interests of a country like Malaysia. So our position on China and the balance that we are striking between China and the West is actually a strategic, is a deliberate policy decision designed to protect our own national interests. We cannot go beyond that. To be strongly pro one particular power would affect the interest of Malaysia insofar as the other aspects are concerned. So we need to maintain that neutral stance and be friends to all. The best thing to do in this world is to be friends, to be friendly to all, and to have no enemies, if possible. At the moment, as alluded to by Professor Tadi, the only country that we do not establish diplomatic relation is Israel. And there is no apology for that. We don't apologize for that. But that is also consistent with our present stand. But that does not mean that we are not maintaining our principle of neutrality and non-alignment.
Just to add some points with the current context, with our principle of neutrality, I think when it comes to, there are a few examples like Board of Peace, established by Donald Trump, to redevelop Gaza, we decided not to join the board. And another thing is, when it comes to BRICS, we also joining not as a full member but just an associate member, just taking part of that meeting, not become full-fledged member of that team. And I think there's a recent also case which is I think very interesting to pinpoint of this case. When it comes to voting for Xinjiang, China, there's a condemnation of in the Human Rights Councils when US brought the motions to condemn atrocity and so genocide in Xinjiang. We decided to abstain, but Indonesia in favor of the more towards China back then. So in a way, we always try to maintain our principle of neutralities and try to be friend with everybody actually. And luckily, because I think just to also respond to the second question for the first, who asked question just now, we also, in terms of our relation, I forgot just now. I want to the things that I want to mention. I forgot the thing that I want to mention. I remember that I respond. Yeah. Thank you.
Any more? Yes, Dr. Norafida. Yes, please proceed to the microphone.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang amat berbahagia Tun and all the colleagues here. My name is Norafida, an academic at the School of International Studies, SoIS here. So Tun, thank you very much, Yang amat berbahagia Tun, for the presentation and your time being here. And we have been, collecting so many points of what you have been saying. And so what we may see actually, Tun is trying to tell everyone here, the students and including the lecturers, to be a diplomat, the future diplomat, at least, right. So we need, I think, three sections or three areas, and that is the skills composed of the communication skills, negotiation skills, public speaking, and the other component is knowledge. And the other component is the character and high credibility that you have been mentioned on that matters. And that can be gained through knowledge and experience those things. And talking about the skill of the negotiation skill, and we have been seeing the negotiation skill has been ongoing between Iran and United States, right? And never ending, right? The process. It begins with Oman, then moved to Pakistan, right? So now the question, Tun, based on your experience, and how do you see this negotiation process? What are the lapses? What are the items that are missing in that particular negotiation skill, negotiation process? Is it because of lack of trust, deep-seated mistrust among those negotiators or between these two warring countries, United States and Iran? Please do. Yep. I don't know. Did you get it? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yep.
I think if you are referring to negotiation between the US and Iran, you have to go back to the conditions that were imposed by the two countries at the beginning of the negotiation. And if you look at the conditions imposed, you find that it is so wide that it is almost impossible to even sit down to negotiate and to reach a solution. Now, for a country like America to demand that a country like Iran should not have its own nuclear weapons, even though Iran has initially stated that it has got a fatwa earlier on that do not allow Iran to produce nuclear weapons. But that is now, I think, not seen to be good enough. I think the most difficult thing is the element of trust between the two, and the objective in which the countries have when starting and sitting down to negotiate. A country like Pakistan, being a mediator, I think can only use its good officers, but it has got its own limitation. But it is important for friendly countries like that to continue to get the Americans and Iran to sit down, because sitting down and talking is better than going to war. But as you have seen, things are not really improving on the ground, and there is a likelihood that this war would continue to go on for quite some time. We are not saying how long this war will last, but I think looking at the statements coming out from Iran, for example, I think Iran would continue to go to war as long as it takes. I think to Iran is a matter of survival. They would not want to give up their country just to allow the Americans to destroy its own civilization, as what was mentioned by Trump. Now, when you have a situation like that, when the demand by the US together with Israel is the complete to the extent of complete denuclearization of Iran, I think in the long term it will be very, very difficult for them to achieve any breakthrough. And I don't think there is any mediator strong enough, influential enough, who would be able to bring the two parties together at the end of the day. But having said that, countries like Malaysia and other countries around the world, I think, should continue to support whatever peace effort, whatever negotiations that are taking place. I think we need to bring the temperature down. I think less tension, less war taking place in the world is better for everybody, because the implications of whatever war that takes place, I think, would be bad for the entire international community. So in a way, I hope I'm not giving you a less optimistic picture, but personally, I must say that I am also quite pessimistic about this, the prospect of them reaching a peaceful solution. But I hope that as the position of the US position is tied very much to the position of Trump as the president of the US, it is likely that when there is a change in the presidency of the US, the situations might change. The US approach towards Iran might probably see a slightly different kind of a policy change that would reduce tension and perhaps prevent the countries, prevent the Americans from going to war. But if you look at the history of the US in general, the US has been going to war since I think more than 5 or 6 decades. Yeah? Over the last 5 or 6 decades, they have been going to war one after the other. So this is a continuous thing. But you can, of course, link to the need for war to the demands of the military-industrial complex of the US as well. I think that is another dimension that you need to look at. Statements have been made to the effect that they need to go to war in order to test new military equipments that they are producing to see whether the equipments can still be used. That is one other dimension as to why this war is continuing as it is at the moment, because of the pressure coming from the military industrial complex in the US in particular. Maybe Professor, you have
Thank you, Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun, for his explanation and his response. And I do concur with Tun's response, yeah, that the problem with the current negotiation, this is referred to this current negotiation, is not about the skills, but to be perfectly honest, when we involve with any kind of negotiation, trust is something need to at least to be built between both parties. Yeah? But unfortunately, in this situation, it seems that the intention of the Americans especially is to be perfectly honest, to a certain extent, is to take a revenge after a clear defeat on them. Yeah? And they try to overcome this and that. And that's why when we look into who are the negotiators from the American side, you can see Jared Kushner. What's his skills? And also all this portray how serious they are to go to the right solution. And to be perfectly honest, this is from an academic point of view. When we look into Iranians negotiators, we learn something, that they send all the negotiators are having IR background, yeah, from the speakers, the speaker, Dr. Galibaf. Just they didn't mention much on the PhD that they have, yeah. Arashi, the foreign minister, is he holds a PhD in politics, yeah, in political thoughts, I think. And Galibaf, he holds PhD in geography, political geography. So that this is the right person to deal. That's why we can see different approaches, yeah. But I believe if, for example, like Tun mentioned, if the Americans can change the president, for example, to have, yeah, Mamdani, for example, as the president, or at least the chief of negotiators, then we can see at least not only Madani is Muslim, but he's also Shiite, like the Iranians, so that they may speak the same language to a certain extent, and more importantly, of course, to reach to the right destination or the right solutions, not only for them, but for us too, and for all. Thank you.
Just now remember from the second question just now, yeah? It's about semiconductors, about AI. What I think very crucial for Malaysia, because we are a trading nation. We are prosperous because we have political stability in the countries, and also we have our economy actually depending on exports. You know, we export nations, and we also have oil. You know, in our production. So because of that, we are prosper. But most important thing actually, when it comes to export, we want our industry, we no longer goes back to the probably, several decades before when we just export our raw material. We want the end product, to produce product. So that's why I think because of these situations, countries like US, China, they're also interested on our critical mineral like REE. Yeah? So what we argue with them is that instead of you get our natural resources, we want you to come to invest in and to produce the end product. So that's why there are a lot of this company invest in Malaysia. We also rely on FDI foreign direct investment for the countries. Another thing which I think very important, because the current government policy approach towards AI encourage a lot of these company, NVIDIA, like Tesla, company from China. Another thing that because of the trade war, China decided to outsource some of their technologies. So that's why they are opening a data center in Malaysia, and also US also coming to here. So because of that, our economy very strong right now. It become hub for and driven for the probably AI in the futures. This I think I know Indonesia very very envy towards this, because we got the potential, but somehow we managed to grab this new. But still, one thing very interesting point. This also contributed by the universities. In order to become hub for semiconductors productions of electronics, for example, we not just produce. We also have the higher skilled workers that produce chips. Our ability to produce chips makes everybody coming to us. So meaning that our local talent that produce the one. So in order for Indonesia to become producing some similar like that, I think you also need to train experts, skills workers that are able to produce similar kind of technology. So because of that, I think why Malaysia are going very fast right now compared to other countries, and many of the companies coming to invest in Malaysia. So probably that's my response to the questions.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Azizudin. Perhaps I can allow for one more simple question. Yes, please. Please proceed to the microphone. Siapa dia? Yes, please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Tahir, and I'm from Bachelor of International Affairs Management, SEM 4. So my question is very simple about what Tun said earlier. So Tun said earlier, countries assess whether a diplomat can be trusted, and credibility is priceless. So my question is, in the era of public digital diplomacy and also like intense media scrutiny, how does a diplomat maintain that vital invisibility and also behind the scenes trust? And then my second question is that you also mentioned that diplomacy cannot be fully taught technically. So what kind of your personal experience or daily practice that you can recommend for us young inspired diplomats to build that specific brand of wisdom and emotional discipline? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think the issue of trust can be demonstrated in no other way than by action. Words alone is, of course, something that can be articulated by diplomats. And in diplomacy, there is a saying that diplomats are sent abroad in order to lie for the country. I don't know whether you have heard that phrase before. It has been used before, and I think it has been probably practiced by diplomats all over the world. But how you lie, how you do it is another thing altogether, and that requires a special expertise. But then you must not be caught in lying or in not telling the truth. So the important thing I think that you need to remember is to ensure that words are followed by action. So like all human beings, I think people trust you because of the action, because of your deeds. And this applies to our relation with all our countries, not only bilaterally, but also in the context of international negotiation, in the context of multilateral forums. At the end of the day, action is what matters. So if you look at, for example, I brought up that subject, that issue of Norway. At the time when agreement was signed between the parties, there was an understanding and a commitment on the part of Norway to sell the missiles to Malaysia. and Malaysia paid accordingly. We fulfill all the obligation as a buyer. But subsequently they changed their position. But changing position because of, again, national interest is something that we cannot really question. It is Norway's national interest at this point of time to change its position for a specific reason. So this is something that we need to reckon with and we need to accept. But of course, Norway's reputation is affected because of that, whether we like it or not. And I think it will now make it impossible for us to look at Norway as a potential country to purchase this type of equipment that we require for our defense purposes. So that is why, coming back to what I mentioned earlier, deed and action is important to bring about and to enhance trust in the context of diplomacy and bilateral relation involving countries. Now, the other question that...
Oh, you have the second question. Okay, please repeat your question.
The second question is based on your experience, any like recommendation for us young aspiring diplomats here to build that emotional discipline and also to have that charisma of a diplomat? Thank you.
Building, well, charisma is associated with individuals sometimes. Some people have charisma, some people have no charisma. Some people try to develop the charisma, but nothing came out of it. Some people are just born with charisma, either physically or the way they conduct themselves. You know, I think you can do so. Nevertheless, I think it's a question of understanding and training yourself, to discipline yourself towards becoming a credible, respectable diplomat, someone that can be looked highly upon to conduct our diplomacy. We need to actually build up the character of individuals. And there are so many positive aspects. There are actually many aspects that are required to be a good diplomat. And I think if you are able to train and over the years, for example, inculcate this over the years, you might be able to eventually develop the type of disciplines that would be put into practice by diplomats. We, in our case, as I mentioned earlier, we do have many individuals, towering figures who have been exceptional diplomats in their own right. People who command the respect of the international community by how they conduct themselves. But we need to train more of the young diplomats available now at the ministry, and also new entries into the diplomatic service to understand and appreciate the importance of this aspect of diplomacy for them to be good diplomats in the long term. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Tun. Perhaps we have one last question, right? Wow, more question. Okay. Okay, yes. One last question. Okay, David, you will be the last person to ask. Yes, one, please.
Okay, I'm Nur Azam from Majlis Keselamatan Negara, so this will be the question for Tun. As we know that Rohingya issues regarding their settlement in our country has been a hot topic in our country. So, hence then, what is your view, Yatun, on our diplomatic stand towards Rohingya settlement issue as it involves the humanitarian and the national security? Please.
Well, I agree with you that the Rohingya issues is becoming more and more important. You must have read the papers yesterday. There's a report saying that there are now more than 200,000 Rohingyas in Malaysia, and perhaps more and more are coming. Some perhaps still in the open seas, waiting for the right time to enter Malaysian territorial waters. I think Malaysia as a country, I would like to look at it from two perspectives. One is, as a small country, with all our own economic and social problems, there is a limit in which we can absorb these Rohingyas coming into Malaysia. There must be a clear-cut policy on this. We, as a country, cannot continue to absorb the entire population of Rohingyas to come into Malaysia. You are talking of almost 1 million now settled in Bangladesh. Now, if you want to be strictly a believer on humanitarian principles, then you should just open up. Or if you say that this is in line with Islamic principles, perhaps, we could just open up the country and to absorb as many Rohingyas as possible. But I think there should be a balance between the number that we can accept and what we can do as a country in order to allow them to settle down within the country. We need to be, of course, yesterday if you were to read the statement made by Abim, I think, they came up with a very strong statement urging a balance between the application of the humanitarian principles and the need for Malaysia to exercise some control so that if things get out of control, at the end of the day, Malaysia would face serious consequences to the extent that we might not be able to contain it all. We were talking about it last night even. There are now cases of Rohingyas now living in Malaysia, marrying Indonesian refugees here in Malaysia, marrying Bangladeshi workers also in Malaysia. The end result of it, you have second and third generation of Rohingyas living in Malaysia. But I think overall, some people might say that absorbing 200,000 is not a big deal for Malaysia. Even Kedah, for example, we still have plenty of land. Or we can send them to certain parts of Pahang, perhaps, or Johor, for that matter, and so on and so forth. If not Penang, Penang do not have enough land. Yeah. But like all countries, but this is nothing to be critical of Malaysia. Australia, huge country, they also impose certain limitation. They prevent, refugees from coming in and right in the open sea. They even open centers in other countries to ensure that these refugees, are sent to those centers and not to allow them to enter Australia. The same with the US. If you look at the US, it's such a huge country. They can absorb millions and millions. Actually, they could absorb the entire Rohingyas, actually, in America. But they're not doing that. So no country would adopt a policy to allow unlimited number of such immigrants. These are purely economic. Some maybe they can argue they left the country because of political persecution and so on. But basically, they are economic refugees looking for better livelihood in other countries. Fortunately, a country like Malaysia is able to absorb them. We're happy to do so in many ways. I think even though we are not a signatory to the UN convention on refugees, but we still accept them. And I think to our credit, we hope we'll be able to do so in a way that would also allow us to protect what is perceived as our right and our basic national interest. Thank you.
Okay, Tun, I think I should, give opportunity to your best friend, Dr. Ben, to ask you a question because he has been signaling me since the early session, but I didn't give him the opportunity.
No, question, observation.
Yes.
Slightly longer.
Make it short. Make it crisp. Are you always
Make it crispy. Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to join in the discussion. Mine's going to be very brief. So the theme of today's talk is aptly and fittingly suited to this mixed audience. Interestingly, Don had offered an inspiring appraisal or assessment of the theme of the talk. The discussion will follow by the discussions. To start with, this is my observation, to complement what has been said in the beginning. To start with, I shall start with a question. What makes international affairs interesting? Here you are, making it interesting because you study here why countries cooperate or go to conflict. Very briefly. How world powers work, how international decisions affect everyday life that can or collectively solve. Examples, how oil prices rise as a result of war or after the war. Example, about climate change negotiations. So these are international affairs questions which are huge areas of study, which nobody can claim to be, or nobody can claim to profess it, or claim that I know them all. Very huge subject. So these are the subject that you are confronted with when you study international affairs. So I believe many in the audience are at SoIS, either with INTAF or with IB, in which you are dealing with the broadest and most interdisciplinary field, looking at global issues through the lenses of economics, politics, culture, history, languages, development, environment, security, and globalization. So what are your future career path in this? What would you like to become after studying international affairs? So these are a few options that you may have, not necessarily in the diplomatic service, but as a choice for you to be in the international organizations, in the NGO that has been mentioned, as a government policy, in journalism, intelligence, and security analysis, international or think tank, and so on. These are all the options open to those who are doing international affairs. Don't just confine to diplomatic service, all right? Now, next one. This is for the future-ready diplomats. That's been mentioned quite a lot by Tone. So my input here is for the future diplomats, whoever aspire to be in the service, be mindful of this intervention, or I use the word invasion of issues that crop up in recent years, which today, in my time, during Tone's time in the foreign service, these issues are regionalized or sometimes resolved between parties. But now all the issues that we can think of have been internationalized. so huge. So future diplomats must be mindful, must be aware of this invasion. I use the word invasion because they just creep into diplomacy. So what are these invasions? Number one, economic invasion, whereby the growing interdependence and interpenetration of economies and the increasing degree of government responsibility for economic management comes to dominate the content of international affairs. Number two, public concern involvement, involvement invasion, as a result of which the public opinion become both a key concern and key asset in conducting foreign policy. Number three, human rights invasion, in which treatment of individuals and minorities become an issue of the international concern. These are the knowledge that every aspiring diplomat must know, must understand. Then you have got this social invasion that creep into international affairs on a large scale, giving prominence only to economic, not only giving prominence to economic development, but also social development, like poverty, unemployment, health, education, disadvantages suffered by women, children, and the handicapped. Number five, new issues invasion, by which it means especially the question of how to handle threats to environment, drug abuse, and terrorism. Then information technology and invasion, which have been mentioned by the speaker, so I don't have to rehash here. Then the seven is multiplicity of actors, part of which was mentioned by the discussion, what the NGOs and the non-state actors. So multiplicity actors invasion. Example, the emergence of huge number of non-state actors who are now part of the process of conducting international relations. All these non-state actors have divergent interests. So they come on stage or on board with the state actors in the hope of, lastly, I think the time is running short, right? So these are my input for the aspiring diplomats. Be mindful of maybe in future there are more and more issues cropping up. So you got to be ahead of all this. Right? Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Ben. I think, okay, actually you are actually helping me, my role as a mediator. So Dr. Ben has helped me to wrap up the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Ben. But perhaps I think I would like to give one last opportunity to David to ask question. Make sure that your question is very simple. All right.
Okay, good afternoon. So my name is David. My question is, given the increasing complexity of contemporary international relations, what role do Tun think non-state actors can play in promoting peace building and international dialogue through soft power? Yeah, thank you.
His project paper, the first research question.
Perhaps our tadi could let me just I do share the view given by Prof earlier that NGOs, non-state actors play a very important role in diplomacy. I think increasingly we are beginning to see more and more organizations becoming more and more assertive in their, not only in their programs, in their actions, but in terms of providing resources for them to undertake their activities globally. Some, of course, some of these have done have done very well, and they are very determined. If you look at, coming back to the flotilla again, this flotilla issue has been a subject of a lot of discussion. Why must they spend their time and resources to do that, to risk their lives in order to go to Gaza just to help? And if you look at the history of those who have been there, they went there, but they were arrested by Israel side. They were put into prison, and none of what they brought with them finally reached the people in Gaza. So it could be considered as a waste of time and a waste of resources. But the fact of the matter is that they are registering a message. And this message is important for the international community to understand. And to that extent, if they were to continue with this series of flotilla, I think that message will remain. And I think the international community has to reckon with this, and Israel itself will have to take into account that this is the voice, this is reflecting the views of the international community, which they have to recognize. So from that point of view, even though in terms of their programs and so on, you can assume that on the surface, nothing much is achieved. But actually, I can see that they continue to play a very important role. And we, as members of the society, members of the, we are being normal citizens, we should try to provide as much support as possible to all these NGOs to undertake the type of programs which are good for the international community. Just briefly.
Thank you, Ahmad Berbahagia Tun. I think Tun's response are good enough, to respond to the questions from Muslim David, on the role of the non-state actors, especially on non-governmental organizations. And if we can look further, that non-governmental organizations normally initiated, and the movement led by the so-called activists, and most of them are volunteers. Most of them are volunteers. So what does that mean? This means sincerity of their efforts. They may be small, but then they can bring people due to their honest works, their continuous efforts. And for Flotilla, for example, this is not the first series. This is from 2011 or so, 2012, until now. And the message now become bigger and bigger. You never imagine that country like Italy. Italy is a strong supporter, staunch supporter of Israel. But then, because of Flotilla, the recent one, then Italy summoned the ambassador of Israel to explain why. The Italians have been treated very badly. The same thing happened to Australia when there were a few Australian activists that unfortunately they claimed that they were raped in the Israeli prisoners. So these kind of things, they may not be big, but then they can break the siege, and they are the street voices. And if we look into, for example, even the origin of a Greenpeace movement, started from very small efforts, a small initiative, but then a grower and growing bigger and bigger. And alhamdulillah, we can see here that that's why when we look into IR, in my opinion, then IR is not all about the diplomats only, but we are all should involve with international relations, because in the end of the day, when the effects of the global crisis, for example, yeah, we have to pay higher price for the oil, for the diesel, for petrol, and so on. So then we need to participate. So IR is not only for INTAF students or for SoIS only, but we should take part. And how can we take part? So among the channels are this kind of charity organization, non-governmental organizations, a social movement, and so on. And we can see the latest issue, for example, in Albania, right? That people come to the streets and initiated mainly by the so-called environmentalists that against the Krishna's involvement with buying or purchasing the land of Albania. So we can see the difference. And we can also see the example how Mamdanis winning the election. Yeah, it's not only the supports from the politicians, but among those play important roles in supporting Mamdani are the role of the influencers. This is another angle or another parts of the community and society that I would say I do prefer to use a civil society movement. And not merely just to be an influencer, but educated influencers that can bring the awareness, can inculcate the awareness among the people and do the right things, yeah, and promote the right things, and hopefully this will be among the ways how we can make the betterment of the global future, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. I suppose this is the final, the end of our forum for today. Inshallah, we will try to extend our invitation once again for Tun to come over to UUM so that we can organize another session of forum with Tun, inshallah. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in expressing our sincere appreciation to Yang Amat Berbahagia, Tun Datuk Seri Utama Ahmad FUZI Abdul Razak, Professor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin Muhammad Sani, and Associate Professor Dr. Aminur Rashid Yatiban for a highly engaging and enlightening discussion. On behalf of the School of International Studies, University Utara, Malaysia, I would also like to thank all participants for your active participation and thoughtful questions. Well done. With that, I have come to the end of my role as moderator for this session. I would now like to hand over the program to our Masters of Ceremonies for the next segment of today's event. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Nazaria. Hadirin sekalian, majlis mengucapkan jutaan terima kasih kepada Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun dan semua tetamu kehormat atas sesi sebentar tadi. Dimohon semua tetamu kehormat untuk terus kekal di hadapan bagi sesi penyampaian cenderamata. Sebagai tanda penghargaan dan kenang-kenangan, majlis dengan hormatnya menjemput Yang Berusaha Profesor Dr. Muhammad Azizuddin untuk menyampaikan cenderamata kepada Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun. Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun serta Yang Berusaha Prof serta seluruh tetamu kehormat atas sesi penyampaian cenderamata sebentar tadi. Dipersilakan Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun serta seluruh tetamu kehormat untuk kembali ke tempat duduk utama. Hadirin sekalian, majlis akan diteruskan dengan sesi bergambar sebagai kenang-kenangan untuk program pada hari ini. Dipersilakan petugas jurufoto untuk mengambil tempat di hadapan bagi meneruskan sesi ini.